I never thought I'd see my brother again after we buried him. 3 years had passed since Thomas's funeral. 3 years of grief and guilt that ate at me every single day. But there he was, standing in line at a Tim Hortons in Vancouver, very much alive. Let me back up. My name is Richard, and I'm 63 years old. I spent 40 years building a construction business in Toronto with my younger brother Thomas. We weren't just business partners. We were best friends. Our parents died young. I was 22, he was 17. I practically raised him. I taught him how to swing a hammer, how to read a blueprint, how to shake a man's hand and mean it. I was there when he got married. I held his hand when it fell apart. When his daughter was born, I was the first one he called. We were inseparable. He was my shadow, my brother, my best friend. Thomas died in February 2021. At least, that's what I believed with every shattered piece of my soul. He'd been visiting a job site in northern Ontario when his truck went off an icy road and into a ravine. The RCMP called me at 2 in the morning. I'll never forget that phone call. The officer's voice was careful, measured. "Mr. Patterson, I'm very sorry to inform you that your brother, Thomas Patterson, was killed in a single vehicle accident this evening." The world didn't go silent. It screamed. A high-pitched, tearing scream inside my head that didn't stop for weeks. I drove through a blinding snowstorm to identify the body. The funeral home director in that little northern town was a quiet man with sad eyes. He led me into a cold, sterile room. The air smelled of chemicals and sorrow. A body lay on a gurney covered by a sheet. He warned me, his voice low. The facial trauma is significant. The impact, it was severe. I wasn't looking at the face. My eyes went straight to the hands, resting on the chest. Thomas had a distinctive birthmark on his left wrist, a perfect dark little maple leaf he'd had since birth. I saw it there on that cold, still hand, and I fell apart. My knees gave way. The director caught me. That birthmark was his. It was Thomas. My brother was gone. His daughter, Monica, handled most of the arrangements. She was 28 then, a sharp accountant. She'd always been close to her father, his little princess, even after the divorce. She seemed devastated, but in a quiet, controlled way. She was efficient, organized. She picked the casket, a beautiful dark oak. She arranged the service, chose the hymns. She dealt with the insurance company, the lawyers, the mountain of paperwork that follows death. I was grateful. I was a ghost myself, wandering through our empty office, touching his old hard hat, utterly useless. The funeral was at our small family church in Mississauga. About 70 people came, friends, clients who'd become family over 4 decades. We had a closed casket service. Monica had insisted. "Uncle Richard," she'd said, her voice firm but her eyes red-rimmed. "We should remember him as he was, not like that." I didn't argue. I couldn't bear the thought. We buried my brother. We lowered a box into the frozen February earth, and a part of me was lowered down with it. After the funeral, Monica and I met with the lawyers. Thomas's will was simple. He left his half of the business to me, and his personal assets, his house, his savings, to Monica. It made sense. Monica wasn't interested in construction. She had her own life. We sold his house. I bought out his share of the company from his estate, paying the money to Monica. It was clean. It was final. Or so I thought. For 3 years, I moved through life like a man underwater. The business, Patterson and Patterson Brothers Construction, felt hollow. The "and brother" was just painted letters on a sign now. I went through the motions. The guilt was the worst part. The night he died, we had an argument. A stupid, meaningless fight about a subcontractor's bill. Our last words to each other were in anger. I never got to say I was sorry. I never got to say goodbye. That's what brought me to Vancouver last month. A friend said I needed to get away, to clear my head. I was walking down a damp, gray street, lost in my own thoughts, my own perpetual February, when I decided to get a coffee. And there he was, in a Tim Hortons on Robson Street. My heart didn't just skip a beat. It stopped. The air was sucked from my lungs. Time folded in on itself. He was older, thinner. His hair was shorter, gray at the temples. He wore glasses he never needed before. A simple jacket I didn't recognize. But it was him. The slope of his shoulders. The way he stood with one foot slightly turned out. And then, as he reached for his wallet, I saw it. The cuff of his jacket rode up. On his left wrist, a small, dark maple leaf. The world tilted. The noise of the coffee grinder, the chatter, the traffic outside, it all melted into a silent, roaring wave. My brother, Thomas, alive. He took his coffee, a double-double, I'd bet, just like he always took it, and walked out, turning left down the street. What would you do? Would you call out? Would you run to him, throw your arms around him, weep? A part of me wanted to, but a colder, sharper feeling cut through the shock. A feeling like ice water in my veins. If that was Thomas, then who did we bury? I didn't call his name. I didn't move. I just stood there, frozen, as my resurrected brother walked away. And then the ice in my veins turned to fire. A deep, burning, quiet fury. I walked out of the Tim Hortons, and I followed him. Following someone is not like in the movies. It's terrifying. It's exhilarating. It makes you feel like a criminal and a detective all at once. My hands were shaking. My breath came in short gasps. But I kept a distance, half a block behind, my eyes glued to that familiar, impossible frame. He walked with a purpose, not like a man out for a stroll. He moved like someone who knew this city, who belonged here. After about 15 minutes, he turned into a modest, older apartment building. Not a fancy Vancouver condo, but a simple 3-story walk-up. I watched from across the street, hidden behind a parked van, as he pulled out a set of keys, unlocked the main door, and disappeared inside. My mind was a war zone. Questions exploded like artillery shells. How? Why? Who was in that casket? Why would he do this to me? To Monica? The grief I'd carried for 3 years began to curdle, to transform into something dark and potent. This wasn't a miracle. This was a betrayal so profound, so calculated, it stole the breath from my lungs all over again. I spent the rest of the day across from that apartment building, in a dingy diner with bad coffee. I watched. I waited. He didn't come out. Night fell, and lights went on in a third-floor window facing the street. A shadow moved behind the blinds. His shadow. That's when the planning began. The grieving brother was gone. In his place was someone else. A man with a mission. I needed answers. But I couldn't just confront him. Not yet. If he was capable of this, of faking his own death, of letting me mourn for 3 years, what else was he capable of? I extended my stay in Vancouver. I booked a hotel room a few blocks away. The next morning, I was back in the diner before sunrise. He emerged at 8:15 a.m., dressed in neat, casual clothes, and walked to a small, nondescript office building about 10 minutes away. I noted the address. I watched him go in. I waited for hours. When he left for lunch, I acted. I walked into the building lobby. The directory listed a handful of small businesses, a tech startup, an import-export firm, a freelance graphic designer. And on the fourth floor, Northern Star Financial Consulting. It sounded generic, blurry. I needed more. I couldn't ask questions directly, not without risking everything. So I started with what I knew: death, the accident. I called the RCMP detachment that had handled the case from a payphone. My voice shook, but I tried to sound like a confused family member. "I'm just trying to get some closure," I said, "about the Thomas Patterson accident in 2021. Is there any chance there was a mistake?" The officer on the phone was polite but firm. "Sir, the identification was verified by next of kin. The vehicle was registered to him. Dental records were a match. It was a tragic accident, but there was no mistake." Dental records? A match? How is that possible? You can't fake dental records. Unless... A cold, terrible idea began to form. What if the body wasn't faked? What if it was someone else? I thought of the closed casket. Monica's insistence. We should remember him as he was. I thought of her efficiency, her control, the way she handled everything. No. I pushed the thought away. She was his daughter. She was grieving. She was just being strong for both of us. My investigation turned digital. In my hotel room, I started digging. Northern Star Financial Consulting had a bare-bones website. No staff photos, just a phone number and an email. It was a ghost, just like Thomas was supposed to be. Then I remembered something from the aftermath: the insurance. Thomas had a substantial life insurance policy. Monica was the beneficiary. As his business partner, I knew about it. We'd taken them out on each other years ago to protect the business. It was standard. A $2 million policy. Monica had dealt with the claim. She told me it was settled quickly, without issue. She'd used some of the money to pay off her own student loans and bought a new condo in Toronto. She said it's what her father would have wanted. I never questioned it. Why would I? A $2 million reason, that's a powerful motive. But for Monica? Or for Thomas? My head was spinning. I needed to see him again, up close. I needed to hear his voice. The next day, I took a risk. I waited near his apartment, dressed in a hoodie I'd bought, a baseball cap pulled low. He came out, heading for the grocery store. I followed him inside. The aisles were narrow. My heart was a drum in my chest. I got close enough in the cereal aisle to hear him hum a tune. It was an old song our father used to sing. The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. Thomas always hummed it when he was concentrating. That hum, it was a dagger to my heart. It was him, without a shadow of a doubt. All the proof I needed was in that off-key, familiar melody. He turned. Our eyes almost met. I looked down quickly, fumbling with a box of crackers. He moved on, oblivious to the earthquake he'd caused in the soul of the brother he'd left for dead. As he paid for his groceries, I saw him pull out his wallet. And I saw something else. Tucked into the clear ID slot, next to a driver's license I couldn't read, was a small, faded photograph. It was worn at the edges, but I could see what it was. A picture of a young girl on one swing. Monica. She must have been about 8 years old. It was his favorite picture. He'd kept a copy on his desk at work for years. He still carried it. Why would a man who faked his death to run away from his life still carry a picture of his daughter from 20 years ago? Unless he wasn't running from something. Unless he was running to protect something. Or someone. The puzzle pieces were all there, but they formed a picture I wouldn't comprehend. The insurance money. The closed casket. Monica's efficiency. Thomas, alive and carrying her picture. A horrifying, sickening symmetry clicked into place in my mind. What if the betrayal wasn't just Thomas's? What if it was theirs? Together. I flew back to Toronto. The city I'd built with my brother now felt like a crime scene. Every street, every job site was a reminder of the lie. I couldn't go to the police. What would I say? My brother is alive, and I think my niece might be involved. I had no proof. Just a ghost I'd seen in Vancouver, and a gut feeling churning like a black hole. I started where it all ended, or where it was supposed to have ended, the accident site. I drove north, the landscape becoming bleaker, the trees skeletal. I found the stretch of road, a sharp curve overlooking a deep, wooded ravine. A small, faded cross was nailed to a tree. Someone had left it. Maybe the police, maybe a local. For Thomas, for the man who wasn't down there. I stood at the guardrail, looking down into the shadows. The official report said his truck had gone off here, tumbled down, and exploded on impact. The body was badly burned. Facial trauma is significant. But the dental records matched. A terrible, cold logic was assembling itself. To fake a death that is perfect, you need a body that can pass for yours, a body with similar dental work. How do you get that? You don't, not legally, unless you have help. From someone who knows how to access records, someone who knows how to navigate systems. An accountant, perhaps. Monica. The thought was physical sickness. I pushed it down, clinging to the memory of the little girl I'd bounced on my knee. It couldn't be. It mustn't be. I needed to look at the financial trail. The business had paid Monica for Thomas's share. That was clean, traceable. Life insurance was a separate river of money. I called an old friend, a private investigator I'd used years ago for a sensitive corporate matter. I met him in a quiet bar. I told him a partial truth. I think there was fraud connected to my brother's death. The insurance. I need to know where the money went after Monica got it. Can you trace it, discreetly? He gave me a long, hard look. Richard, this can open doors you might not want to walk through. They're already open, I said, my voice flat. I just need to see what's inside. A week later, he called me back. The information he gave me turned my blood to ice. The $2 million payout had gone into Monica's account. Standard. But within 6 months, it had moved. Not in one chunk, but in a series of smaller, regular wire transfers. To an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. From there, the money had danced. To a shell corporation in Panama. Then to a private bank in Switzerland. The trail was designed to be cold, complex, and professional. But my friend had a contact. The Swiss account wasn't in Monica's name. It was under the name T.E. Walker. Thomas's middle name was Edward. He was living off the insurance money. The money paid for his death. The money Monica had claimed. The pieces were locking together, forming a chain that bound my niece and my brother in a conspiracy of unspeakable cruelty. They had done this. Together. They had found some poor soul, a homeless man, a missing person, placed him in Thomas's truck, and sent him over that ravine. They used Monica's access and cold precision to manipulate the identification. They let me identify a stranger's birthmarked hand, a detail they must have known I'd look for. How had they faked that? A tattoo? The planning was monstrous. And for what? $2 million? To split between them? Was my brother's love, our lifetime of partnership, worth a mere $1 million to him? The rage was back, white-hot and pure. It was no longer just grief turned sour. It was a demand for justice. But the law needed evidence I didn't have. Confession. A body? I had neither. I had a ghost in Vancouver and a paper trail to nowhere. My revenge couldn't be a courtroom. It had to be something else. It had to be a complete destruction, more complete. It had to mirror the betrayal. They hadn't just taken money. They had taken 3 years of my life. They had taken my peace. They had made a mockery of our family, of my love. I would take everything from them, not with violence, but with truth. I would collapse their carefully constructed world into dust. I devised a plan. It had 2 parts. First, I would confront the architect. Then, I would break the beneficiary. I flew back to Vancouver. This time, I was not a shocked old man. I was a weapon. I went to his apartment building and waited. I saw the shadow in the window. I knew his routine. I would wait for the perfect moment. It came on a rainy Tuesday evening. He came out alone, heading for a quiet-looking pub a few blocks away. I gave him a 10-minute head start, then followed. The pub was dark, woody, half empty. He was sitting at the bar, staring into a pint of beer, the picture of a lonely, middle-aged man. I walked up and took the stool next to him. I didn't look at him. I ordered a whiskey. I let the silence hang between us, thick and heavy. Then, in a calm, quiet voice that didn't sound like my own, I said, "That song you were humming in the grocery store. Dad always hated that we liked it so much." The effect was instantaneous. He froze. The glass in his hand stopped halfway to his lips. I saw the color drain from his face in the mirror behind the bar. His shoulders tensed, locking into a rigid line of panic. He didn't turn. He just stared straight ahead, his reflection a mask of sheer, undiluted terror. "You look good for a dead man, Thomas," I said, finally turning to look at my brother. "The Vancouver air must agree with you." For a long moment, he didn't move. He didn't breathe. The pub's ambient noise, the clink of glasses, the low murmur of conversation, seemed to recede into another universe. There was only this stool, this bar, and the living ghost of my brother. Slowly, very slowly, he turned his head. His eyes, behind those new glasses, were wide with a fear I'd never seen in him before. Not the fear of a physical threat, but the fear of a nightmare realized. "Richard," he whispered. It wasn't a greeting. It was a surrender. "Is that the name you use now?" I asked, my voice still eerily calm. "Or is it T.E. Walker? Nice Swiss. Count? It must be lovely this time of year." He flinched as if I'd struck him. His carefully constructed new life was evaporating before him with every word I spoke. "Don't," he begged, his voice cracking. "Please, not here." "Where then?" I said. "The cemetery seemed appropriate, but you're clearly not a fan." He paid for his untouched beer with a trembling hand and stood up. "My place. Please." We walked the rainy blocks back to his apartment in silence. The distance between us was a vast, frozen canyon. The brother I'd carried on my shoulders, the boy I'd taught to shave, the man I'd trusted with my life, was a stranger. His apartment was sparse, neat but devoid of personality. No family photos, just furniture, the home of a man who didn't exist. He sat on a cheap sofa, head in his hands. I remained standing, a judge in his empty courtroom. "Start talking," I said. "Who was in that truck?" He didn't look up. His words came out in a ragged, broken stream. "His name was Leo Massey. He was dying. Cancer, inoperable. He had weeks to live. No family, nothing. He was in a hospice in Sudbury." I felt the floor tilt. This was worse than I imagined. "You found a dying man?" "Monica found him," Thomas choked out. "Through her work. She did the books for the hospice. She saw his file. No one. He was alone. She approached him. The nausea rose in my throat. Monica. My sweet, efficient Monica. She offered him a deal. Thomas continued, his voice hollow. A deal for his remaining time. He had nothing to leave behind. No legacy. We offered him one. A noble death. A death that would provide for people. We would give him a new identity for his final days, make him comfortable, pay all his bills. And in return, he would die just like me. And the birthmark? My question was about a blade. Monica found an artist, a tattoo artist who asked no questions. She paid him a fortune. He replicated it. It was convincing. The closed casket. So I wouldn't see the face that wasn't his. So I would only see the one detail they knew I'd check. They had used my love, my grief, my memory against me. They had weaponized it. The dental records? I forced the words out. Monica handled the paperwork. She switched the files. She had access. It was a risk, but it worked. I looked at this broken man on the couch. Why, Thomas? For the money? $2 million? Was our life together? Was my life worth so little to you? He finally looked up, and his eyes were swimming in tears of utter shame. It wasn't about the money, Richard. Not for me. Then what? I roared, the calm finally shattering. What could possibly justify this? Making me mourn you. Making me live with guilt every day for our last stupid argument. What was worth that? He took a deep, shuddering breath. It was for her. For Monica. I stared at him, uncomprehending. She was in trouble, Richard. Deep, terrible trouble. She'd gotten involved with someone, a man. He was connected to bad people. She'd made a mistake, gotten in over her head with some things, financial things for his organization. She was drowning. They were threatening her. They were going to ruin her, hurt her, or worse. He wiped his eyes. She came to me, terrified. She saw no way out. Life insurance. It was the only way to get a large sum of money, fast, untraceable to her problems. She could pay them off, disappear, start over. But she couldn't do it alone. She needed death to be perfect. She needed me. So you did it, I said, my voice now a whisper of disbelief. You died for her. What else was I supposed to do? He cried, his composure gone. She's my daughter. I failed her when her mother and I split. I was never there enough. This was my chance to finally be her father, to save her. I thought you would be okay. You're strong, Richard. You've always been the strong one. You had the business. You had your life. She had nothing. She was facing a cliff. The twisted, warped logic of it hit me. In his mind, this was an act of ultimate sacrifice, a father's love. He hadn't just betrayed me. He had martyred himself for her and in the process, crucified me. And the money? I asked coldly. You're living off it. A small part, he said. Just enough to live quietly. Most of it went to them, to the people she owed. The rest, she has it. She's safe now. She started a new life too, out east. That's all that matters. All that matters. My 3 years of hell didn't matter. My grief was just collateral damage in his grand paternal gesture. Do you have any idea, I said, each word dropping like a stone, what you did to me? The funeral you let me plan? The grave I visit? The empty chair in my office? The guilt I felt every single day because our last words were angry. You didn't just take your own life, Thomas. You took a piece of mine and you buried it in that box with a stranger. He was sobbing now, silently, his shoulders shaking. I'm sorry, Richard. God, I am so sorry. I thought about you every day. I saw your face when I closed my eyes. But I was trapped. Once it was done, there was no coming back. The anger was still there, a fire in my chest. But now it was mixed with a devastating, heartbreaking pity. The man before me was not a monster. He was a fool, a desperate, loving, catastrophic fool. And he was being manipulated. A new clarity dawned on me, cold and sharp. Thomas, I said slowly. The money, the trail, it leads to your Swiss account, not to some bad man. It leads to you. He shook his head. No, it was funneled through me, for safety. Have you ever seen these men? Have you ever met them? Or did Monica handle all of it? He hesitated. She handled it. It was too dangerous for me to be involved. And this new life she has out east. Have you seen it? Have you visited? No. We agreed. No contact. Clean break. For safety. The final piece of the grotesque puzzle snapped into place. The ultimate betrayal was not just of me, but of him. Thomas, I said, my voice heavy with a terrible certainty. I don't think there were any bad men. I think Monica was in trouble, yes. But I think the trouble was debt or greed, or something she didn't want to face. I think she concocted a story to make you the hero so you'd agree to die. I think she played on your guilt, your love for her. And I think she kept almost all of the money for herself. He stared at me, his face blank with denial. No, that's not. She wouldn't. Where is she, Thomas? Right now. Give me a city, a name she uses. He was silent. He didn't know. You died for her, I said, driving the point home like a nail. You gave up everything for her. Your brother, your life, your name. And she left you here in this empty apartment with a fraction of the money, living as a ghost, while she's out there living a life paid for by your funeral. The realization broke him. It shattered what was left of him. He crumpled inward, a howl of anguish escaping his lips. He had been so focused on saving his daughter, he never saw that she was the one who had destroyed him. My revenge plan was complete. Part 1. Confront the architect. I had done more than confront him. I had destroyed the very foundation of his sacrifice. I had shown him that his noble act was a hollow fraud. He was living in a prison of his own making for a lie. Now, for part 2. It was time to break the beneficiary. I left Thomas in his apartment of ghosts. He was a broken man, and part of me, the brother part, ached for him. But the larger part, the part that had been betrayed, knew this was his penance, to live with the full, ugly truth of what he'd done and what had been done to him. I had what I needed. A confession, not on tape, but in the shattered man I left behind. It was enough for me, but it wasn't enough for justice. I flew back to Toronto one final time. I didn't go home. I went to Monica's new condo, a sleek, modern tower in a trendy neighborhood. A $2 million life had bought her a very nice view. I didn't call. I just went up. I pressed the buzzer. When she opened the door, her face was a masterpiece of shock. It froze, then cycled through confusion, fear, and finally, a sickly attempt at a smile. Uncle Richard, what a surprise. Is everything okay? No, Monica, I said, walking past her into the spacious, minimalist living room. Nothing is okay. I just saw your father. The color drained from her face so completely, I thought she might faint. She stumbled back, grabbing the edge of a marble countertop for support. What are you talking about? Vancouver, I said, my voice flat. He looks older. He misses you. He still carries that picture of you on the swing. You know the one. She was shaking her head, her mouth opening and closing, no sound coming out. The efficient, controlled accountant was gone. In her place was a terrified child caught in a lie. He told me everything, Monica. About Leo Massey, about the tattoo artist, the dental records, your trouble with the bad men. He's lying, she shrieked, finding her voice. He's confused. He's not well. Is he? I asked, taking a step closer. Or are you? Because I followed the money, Monica. The beautiful, clean money from your father's death. It went to the Caymans, to Panama, to a Swiss account under T.E. Walker. Your father's account, not the account of some shadowy criminals. And from there, well, a lot of it seems to have found its way into the down payment for this apartment, and that sports car in the underground garage, and the rather impressive investment portfolio you've been building. I was bluffing on some details, but her reaction told me I was hitting the mark. She was crumbling. There were no bad men, were there, Monica? I pressed, my voice low and deadly calm. There was just you, in debt from a lifestyle you couldn't afford. Maybe some bad investments, maybe a gambling problem. I don't know, and I don't care. You saw a solution, your dying father's life insurance. And you found a way to get it. You used his love for you, his guilt, to make him your accomplice in his own murder. You made him a ghost so you could live like a queen. You have no proof, she spat, but the defiance was weak, desperate. I have a living brother, I said. That's all the proof the police will need to start digging. And once they start, with what I can tell them, they'll find Leo Massey's real records. They'll find the tattoo artist. They'll follow the money, Monica, all the way to your front door. You'll go to prison for fraud, for conspiracy, for desecration of a body. Your father will go with you. Is that what you want? To finish the job you started and destroy him completely? She slid down the counter onto the cold floor, hugging her knees, sobbing. The facade was in ruins. I didn't mean. I was scared. I didn't know what else to do. You had a family, I roared, my own composure breaking. You had me. You could have come to us. We would have helped you. Instead, you orchestrated this horror. You made me mourn a living man. You made your father a fugitive from his own life. I looked down at her, this woman I had loved as my own child. There was no pity left, only a cold, clear resolution. Here is what is going to happen, I said. You are going to liquidate everything. This condo, the car, the investments. You are going to put every single cent, plus the money you have left, into a trust. That trust will be used to find Leo Massey's real family, if any exist, and compensate them. The rest will be donated to the hospice he died in. You will be left with nothing, just as you should be. And if I don't, she whispered, then I go to the police with everything. And I make sure your father knows the full extent of how you played him, that you were never in danger, that you used his love as a weapon. I will let him live with that, and I will let you rot in a cell. Your choice. She looked up at me, her eyes hollow. She knew it was over. The house of cards she'd built with her father's corpse had collapsed. Okay, she breathed, the word a ghost of its own. I turned to leave. I stopped at the door. One more thing. You will never contact your father again. He has suffered enough because of you. You are dead to him, just as he is dead to me. I walked out, closing the door softly on the ruins of her life. That was 6 months ago. I never went to the police. Some justice is not found in courtrooms. Some justice is the silent burden of truth. I sold Patterson and Patterson Brothers Construction. I couldn't look at the sign anymore. I took the money and retired. I travel sometimes. I avoid Vancouver. Thomas is still there, as far as I know, living as T.E. Walker, a ghost in a city of rain. He knows the truth about his daughter now. That is his life sentence. Monica? I hear she moved to a small town, works a simple job. The money, all of it, was dispersed as I demanded. She lives with what she did. That is her sentence. And me? I visit the grave less often now. But when I do, I don't think of Thomas. I think of Leo Massey, a dying, lonely man, offered a cruel kindness. I leave flowers for him. For the stranger who took my brother's place in the ground, whose death was used to fund a lie. My brother died 3 years ago in that ravine. The man I knew, the loyal, flawed, loving brother. He truly did perish that night. The man in Vancouver is just a shell, a reminder of how far love can be twisted into something monstrous. The moral of the story? Betrayal never comes just from your enemies. Sometimes it comes wrapped in the familiar face of family, armed with the weapon of your own love for them. And revenge, true revenge, isn't about hurting them back. It's about revealing the truth so starkly, so completely, that they have to live with the reflection of what they've done. You destroy the lie, and you let the truth be their prison. The hardest lesson I learned, standing in that Tim Hortons, was this. Sometimes, when you follow a ghost, you don't find a miracle. You find a grave. And sometimes you have to bury the living, right alongside the dead.